So today I'm unboxing X-Wing C-roc Cruiser expansion. This is a first edition box, bought off eBay, got it for quite a nice amount, about 30 quid including postage, so not too bad. I still play first edition. Got into it, was it 2012 game released? Bought the game just as it was released, stayed into it. There is a group of 5 or 6 of us that play this. Used to play it virtually every week. Bought a mountain of ships, and obviously now it's got a little bit older. We play it probably once every couple of months. Lot never upgraded, never seen the need. If anyone has, give us a yell, tell us whether it's worth it. I'm not sure about the cost element of it, but we do play every now and then, and to be honest, still being first edition gives the opportunity to get the odd cheeky win on eBay for stuff like this. So here's the C-roc. Let's have a quick look. Let's look at the little guy first. So this is an M3A Interceptor, I believe. It's on the side of the box. The only thing I know about this is from some of the background, like Clone Wars and Rebels and that kind of thing, when they feature these things in there. So it's a little Mandalorian-made ship, not as powerful as like an X-Wing. I think it equates roughly to a TIE fighter in the background, built to kind of keep under the radar of the Imperials, so not too much of a powerful ship, but ended up in the hands of scum and villainy a lot, which is why we see it in this set. Stick that out the way there. So the C-roc itself. Now this is in the background based off the Imperial Gazanti assault carrier, but a demilitarized version with more cargo capacity. Again, which is why it ends up in the hands of smugglers and dodgy dealing people, because you can fit it with a few weapons. So it's about 75 metres long in the background, so a fairly small ship in the grand scheme of things, but fits really well into the epic scale side of X-Wing. So that's actually a really nice little ship. What I like is you've got the little, I assume, the cargo containers down the side, showing its kind of utilitarian nature. But you have got what looks like a little bit of a weapon pod there, and I'm sure there's lots of cards and details and things that you can fit additional weapons on. I know watching the cartoons, because I do watch some of the cartoons, obviously massive nerd, as I'm sure you all are because you're watching this. It has different hard points and things where weapons can get fitted, so actually that's quite a nice model. Very nice. Right, before we move on to opening the rules, let's have a look at this compared to some of the ships, because I think what's interesting about X-Wing is how they scale the ships. So the fighters are scaled to 1 scaling, and they all broadly match each other. They move to the epic ships and they introduce a different scaling, because obviously if you were to scale some of the epic ships to the size they actually should be, you'd be taking up half your table. So let's see how this compares. So we've got an X-Wing there. That seems to be, nice scale, fits in well with the dynamic that this is meant to be quite a light ship, not a frontline combat fighter. So that compares quite well. Colour scheme's tying quite nicely, and what I quite like about the factions is they seem to make the scum and villainy dirtier looking, which makes a lot of sense, I guess. Let's scale it with a Slave 1. And you can see where the scale disparities start to arise, because this Slave 1 should be significantly smaller, but fits in well with the gaming dynamic. Imagine when you play in, this will sit slightly higher on the table, because you get slightly larger stands. Nice. And then I suppose a direct comparison, when you consider the big scum and villainy ships, would be a Houndstooth Bossk ship. Now this is quite interesting, because this is actually, in the background, quite a chunky ship. So I think the Houndstooth is meant to be about 50 metres long. So if you compare that as something that's meant to be 50 metres long, that's meant to be about 75. That scaling actually is probably about right. No expert, but that looks like a decent scale difference. So actually they've done a pretty good job there in scaling these two ships together, I think, and it will reflect on the battlefield that these are significantly differently sized ships. So I think that's quite useful. I think where the scaling falls down, the quick look I had out of the box earlier, is when you start comparing things like the CR90. So this is probably the biggest along with the Raider, and this is where you fall down slightly with the scaling, because CR90 background wise is about 150 metres, I believe, compared to C-roc 75. So you can see they've had to make some compromises, but again, probably a good thing, because otherwise the CR90 would have to be twice this, twice the C-roc, which means you'd be starting to get into the realms of being ungameable on a table. These things are fiddly enough to play with on a table anyway. As you start using 2 or 3 of the epic ships, imagine them being twice that size. But you know what, I actually think they stack up quite well. It shows that this is a slightly more militarised vessel, even though it is a corvette. I think they stack together really nicely. So we'll have a quick look at the cards. Out of date for most of you people watching, if you are, apart from if the guys I game with are watching, in which case we do still game with these and no one's got one, so it might be quite useful. So what's in the box? Damage deck, yeah, front and rear. So all the big ships have a front and rear damage deck to reflect the size of the ships. Is it still the same? Yeah, it's still the same case. A front and rear damage deck, that's really cool. I find that really useful in the game. It's very characterful to have different chunks of damage going on, but it looks like, actually, when we look at this, that the C-roc only comes with one card. Now, I'm led to believe that that happens with all the ships in the new version. I'm not sure if that's correct or not, but yeah, one card. And a card for the interceptor. So interesting. Yeah. 4 energy, 10 damage, 4 shields. Oh, it seems like fairly good to go in with the Scum and Villainy anyway. It's like not as powerful as the CR90 or the Raiders, but well, decent stat line. I'm sure there's tons of cards we can boost them up. And the interceptor, yeah, fits in nicely with the background where, you know, it's a TIE fighter comparable kind of ship. Oh, interesting. I'll have to explore that at a later date. What I do like about these big ships, and what I actually like about a lot of X-Wing, is your booklets and your expansion campaign. So I'm really glad that, obviously this was bought second hand, really glad that these are in here and they don't look to have been filled out. Adds a lot of character to your games, I think, when you can play something a bit different than just lining up a few hundred points and smashing each other. Just gives you something to go for that's a little bit different to your average game. So that's the box. I'm not going to dig through cards because I'm sure they're all out of date. But yeah, first impressions, that's a really pretty little ship. Looking forward to getting that into a game at some point. And the only drawback to it is it's made me order a new KR case. So when this arrived last night, I thought, I'm not going to store it in the box it comes in. I need to buy a new case for it. I've got 2 KR cases full of X-Wing ships. Now ordered a third. So I'm sure I'm going to have to do some more hunting on eBay to buy some more first edition ships to fill the case, because you can't have an empty case, can you? And he who dies with the most toys wins. Yeah, so that's my impression on the C-roc Cruiser.